Hello and welcome to SEDA College Online. So glad that you're here again today. So great to have you listening to me again. And today the topic that we're talking about are the be and have verbs. So today what I'm hoping to do is not to teach you something new, but more just to remind you about accurate and correct use of the be and have verbs. What my target is really is to remind you that there are unique uses of be and have in English that are probably not the same as they are in your language, and that if you want to sound like a correct speaker of English, you need to adopt these English language uses of these two critical verbs, be and have. You need to remember to use the structure there is and there are. You need to remember be and have used in their stative forms as well as in their dynamic forms. And maybe you need to just reflect a little bit more on have got. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is not that you don't know these things, because I truly believe that you know them academically. The point is that do you actually remember to adopt them? What if you look at the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, we define people as being upper intermediate when they can communicate clearly and easily with a native speaker of English. So we can completely understand what you want to say, and we feel that you understand us, and that there's no real effort for us to communicate with you, but that you don't actually speak very accurately or correctly, and then it's also a question of vocabulary range. And so in order for you to get up to the C1 level, you need to develop a level of accuracy. And this is what we talk about circumlocution. So circumlocution is when you sort of find your way around a language problem that you have. So you have all these strategies and you have these different ways of saying something, and you can do that at speed and comfortably. So you avoid what you don't know and you keep going. But if you want to make it up to be an advanced learner of English, you have to stop avoiding what you want to say, and you have to get the structures that we use and get them quickly. And so what's really crazy is that you just need to go absolutely all the way back to the very beginning, to the first lessons of elementary, to remind you of the critical uses of be and have that we have in English that are actually different from yours. And these are very, very basic structures that are really important to how the English language works. So this is just a little warm-up exercise to entertain you and just to remind you about the difference between be and have. I think you can do it very fast. I cold, a little hungry, he a lot of money, these students very smart, Thomas 2 children, I sleepy, Mary 24, the athlete's tired, and he your purse. So I think I'm very sure that you will get the correct verbs. I'm cold and I have a cold. So what's the difference between I'm cold and I have a cold? Well, one is a state of being, is that I'm chilly. And two, I have a cold means I have an illness. I am at the moment not well. I'm hungry. He has a lot of money. So I'm hungry, we see that as a state of being. Whereas he has a lot of money, we see that as a possession. So one is sort of internal as to how you feel and how you are, and the other one is something about what you have, what you can possess, what can be seen about the exterior of you. The students are smart, that's very internal, and Thomas has 2 children, they're external. I am sleepy, that's internal, that's how you feel. And Mary is 24. That's absolutely core to who she is. That defines her age. And the athletes are tired. Again, that's something that's internal, something that's a part of you. Whereas he has your purse, that's external. So those uses of be and have, that's a basic lesson from when you're just starting out in English, because that's not obvious to people when they start learning English, because there's different use of be and have in different languages. So we're just going to start with a little experiment. And now I'd like to ask you, please, to just quickly write down or even think about 3 nice places in Dublin that you'd like to visit, like 3 places that you would suggest to your friends that you could go if you had a little bit of time, something nice to do in Dublin. Have you thought of those 3 places? And now, please do this, like I'm serious, this makes a difference to me and to what we're trying to achieve today, is please would you just write 1 sentence to explain what you think is nice about each of these places. Like, so I don't just want like single words, but even phrases like what, why go there? What's your place? Why go there? What's the second place? Why go there? And what's the third place? Why go there? Okay, so have you got that? Did you write it down? Great. Okay, so I'll tell you my choices. So the first place I chose was Poolbeg Lighthouse. Now this is really one of my favourite places in Dublin, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't even know about it. It's right in the city centre, or it can be accessed from the city centre on the south side. And it's along the Great Wall, the Dublin Great Wall, which is this massive stone wall that extends for about a mile out into Dublin Bay. And this was built to protect the port, or to develop the port, because it then stopped silting up, and it allowed the city to dredge a deep waterway for the boats to get into Dublin, into the city centre, you know, up to the customs house. So it's been around that long, and it's a lovely place to go for a walk, because you can see on either side of the pier, of the wall, you can see Dublin Bay. So you're walking right out into the middle of the sea. Now, I would recommend that you take your coat, because it's freezing, and you go on a relatively warm day, because it's never warm out there. But it is a lovely, quiet, scenic, beautiful place to go. So I would recommend that. The next place I recommend is Howth Head. You see, I'm a North Sider, so that's why well, actually, no, Poolbeg Lighthouse is on the south side, but the cliff path in Howth is lovely. The cliffs it's not high, but it's very dramatic, and it's very accessible. So you can easily get there by dart or by bus. And then there's this just really nice walk. It sort of takes an hour or so. You can walk for as long as you like, and you can walk from the bottom all the way up to the Howth summit, and then take the bus back down, or the other way around, or you can walk right round. And it's very peaceful and relaxing. There's no cars, like it's a track that you can see that goes along the side of the mountain. It's very nice. The next one that I've chosen is Dublin City Wall and Gate. And this is just because I think maybe some people don't remember that Dublin is over 1,000 years old, that it was formed in the time of the Vikings in 1000 AD. And then as it grew from a Viking settlement, it developed this medieval wall, which was all right round the city for protection measures. And this is around the Liberties that you can see where it is. And so then there's always been this feeling of like Dublin and outside Dublin, and these walls of Dublin would have been part of that feeling if you were inside the walls or outside the walls. So it's just really nice to go somewhere and see a wall that is so many hundreds of years old, just to remind you of the history of the city, and not just to think about Dublin as sort of a modern and a modern place with lots of new buildings and new construction going on in it. And then I've got an extra bonus one here. I asked for 3, but I've given you 4. And so the fourth one I've given you is Farmley House, which is in Phoenix Park. And it's just a nice place to go on a sunny day in Phoenix Park. That there's like cafes there, and you can walk around. You can see the gardens. You can see a vegetable garden, a walled garden with vegetables in it, and you can go in and out of the house. Yeah, it's a nice place to go. So now, what I'd like you to do is analyse the notes that you wrote about your favourite places in Dublin, or the places that you recommended to go, and just have a look. Did you use the verb have, or did you use the verb be with your descriptions? Like, did you say that there was a lovely view, or did you say that the place had a lovely view? Because that's what I'm trying to get to, is that we talk about a place, like we say, it is lovely, there is a great view, and that is the way we speak. And so, like, I'm just trying to look at, what do you say? Like, what comes out of your brain when you are asked a question to describe something? Do you stick with have, which maybe is closer to your own language, or are you able to move straight into the be verb, which means that you're doing really well and speaking English like an English speaker? So just to remind you, have is used for possession, and critically in English, inanimate objects don't usually possess things. So like people possess things, and otherwise inanimate objects like places and cities and dogs and cats and objects, they don't have things. You just describe what's there in terms of what's there. You don't actually connect it as a possession with a have. Like, sometimes we do it, but the thing is that it's not the standard way of using English, and it looks kind of cute and sweet, and also we become so used to it because we hear so much use of have incorrectly that we kind of accept it even as English. But in fact, inanimate objects generally don't possess things, and so therefore you don't talk about them. You say more, let me describe how this is, not what characteristics it has, because people have characteristics and objects are objects. So that's a kind of a core English concept, English language concept. So be is for a state of being. And here you can see I'm cold, I'm hungry, the students are smart, I'm sleepy, Mary is 24 and the athletes are tired. That all describes the way that you are. Cold, hungry, smart, sleepy, how old and how tired. And those are not have verbs, those are be verbs. And then you have a cold is because you have some type of illness, you have a condition that's not, that's a sort of external. You can see somebody sneezing and coughing with their eyes running, that's a cold. You have a lot of money, that you can see that as a person. 2 children, you can see them, and if he has your purse, you can see it. So it's sort of internal and external. And so now I just want to talk about the wide usage of English, of the structures there is and there are. So when you look at the descriptions that you made about the 3 places in Dublin that you should go to, that you wrote about, did you write, there is a lovely view from here, there are lots of cafes, there are loads of things to do, there is a path that goes up the side. Did you write those things? Because that's how we speak. So like the structure of there is and there are, I'm absolutely confident that you know it. Like there is a singular, there are is plural, negative you go there isn't, or else you go there aren't, and a question, is there or are there? So I know that you know that, but my question is more, are you using this structure? Like I've done an awful lot of speaking tests as an English language teacher, and so often you see when you say, well, describe this picture in an FCE test, and the students are saying, have 3 people in the picture, have good weather, have this and have that and have the other. It's like, no, we don't say that. We say there are three people in the picture. It is sunny. The people are happy, and we don't want to hear so much have. So now, I just want to look again at the descriptions that we have here from these places that I chose. Look at the text, and just to prove the point that what I'm saying is that all these descriptions all focus on the be verb and not on the have verb. So we have here from the lighthouse, there are fantastic 360-degree views of different parts of Dublin Bay, the whole way from Howth to Dunleary Harbour. So from the lighthouse, there are fantastic 360-degree views. We don't say the lighthouse has 360-degree views. It's not that it's wrong, but it's just not what we say. Then let's look at the cliff path loop. We say it is only 30 minutes by dart from Dublin city centre. And the actual hiking can take anywhere from 1 to 6 hours, depending on your pace and how much you explore the trails. It's a great walk around the head of Howth, and the view is spectacular and second to none. So here we have the it is. So it should say it is only 30 minutes from Dart. And the view is spectacular. So we don't talk about Howth having a view. We talk about the view from, being great, because Howth is not a person. So Howth doesn't own something. It just one of the definitive things about Howth is the view. The view is spectacular. Then Dublin City Wall and Gate. Before I came to Dublin, I didn't know there was a wall surrounding Dublin. So it's the be verb that we use. It is on Cook Street, just up the road from Christchurch. So just always remember that don't choose the have verb, choose the be verb. And then Farmley House. It is amazing. So this is interesting because it's lovely and it has beautiful gardens and stables. So here is a have verb. And why? Well, because the house is amazing, and the house, you can understand why the house might own the garden. So the house is the main element, and a part of the house is the garden. So the house has a garden, that's okay. But there are often good exhibitions. So now we don't say that the house has the exhibitions. The house has the garden, and there are good exhibitions and tours at the house. The whole place is tranquil inside and out, with a free house tour every hour. So I know it's difficult to exactly pinpoint when you use have and when you use is, but my point is that there's a prevalence of the be verb when you're describing places and things, and a lack of use of have. But of course we do use have sometimes, as you can see here. So what I'm trying to say is that the challenge is not academically learning something different. I know that you know about be and you know about have, but the challenge is remembering to adopt something that's alien to your first language. So you're well able to communicate and we're well able to understand you, but are you willing and able to mold your mind, mold the active part of your brain to actually produce first language English structures, which is what structures there is and there are. This is correct English. And that's what you need to adopt now. And then remembering to use do in questions is really part of the same challenge. You learned it way back there in elementary, but are you actually doing it, or are you just using inflection? You can just use your intonation to show a question and people will understand you. But if you want to sound like a sophisticated speaker of English, you need to remember the do. you also need to remember the third person S. And a lot of research has been done that even high level, very sophisticated speakers of English, they forget to use the third person S because their brain, I suppose, just doesn't see it as a critical feature, and so they just forget. And my argument is that do the third person S, and there are, these things are just forgotten by high level speakers, and you just need to remember to use those in your English. So I just want to talk a little bit about dynamic and stative verbs in terms of be and have. So do you know what a stative verb is? Or I should just remind you that these are verbs that don't generally go into the continuous form, and these are because somehow they're internal and they're defining of who you are and what is your state of being. So like, you don't say I am liking you, or I'm loving you, or I'm hating you. You say I like you, I love you, I hate you. Then when we talk about modals like want and need and prefer, again, we don't say I am wanting this, we say I want it. And so these states are kind of longer than what we perceive as a present continuous or a continuous form. It's something more about what defines you, how you feel, what you believe, what you can hear, what you can see, what you can taste, what you own. All those kind of verbs, you can see we use them generally in the present simple. So some English verbs, which we call state, non-continuous or stative, aren't used in continuous tenses, like the present continuous or the future continuous. These verbs often describe states that last for some time. So here's a list of some common ones. So a stative verb, a verb which isn't stative, is called dynamic, and it usually involves an action. But some verbs can be both dynamic and stative. So, for example, think, like have an opinion is something that you think, that it goes on and on. I think coffee is great. And then think is a dynamic thing, like something that's in your head, like what are you thinking about? I'm thinking about my next holiday. And be, though, now this is mad because be is usually stative because it's core to you, but sometimes it's actually used in the continuous form. So, for example, when I was a child, I was always told, you may not call someone stupid. You can't say you are stupid, because that is a massive insult, that you're saying that somebody is essentially stupid. And there's no coming back from that. Whereas if you say you're being stupid, that's okay, because that's just like at this moment, whatever you're doing is not okay. And so, you're being stupid is okay to say, but you are stupid, that's an insult. Then have is the same kind of thing, is that it can be stative or dynamic. So if you have something, you own it. It's something that stays with you, like I have a car. Whereas if you use it in the continuous form, like I'm having a picnic or I'm having a bath, that means something like doing. That's an activity, and it's temporary, so it's in the continuous form. So here's just a few verbs for both dynamic and stative. So let's see if you can do this. I think it's not too hard for you, really. So let's have a look. My husband is always tasting the food while I'm cooking. It's very annoying. So we've got this in the continuous form because when we're talking about something being annoying, we use it in the continuous form to show that it's irritating, that it goes on and on and on. She has a bath every evening. That is like a behaviour that goes on and on. So that's simple form. She has a bath today, she has a bath tomorrow, she has a bath every evening, present simple. Luke is seeing the doctor right now because that's happening at this moment. He is having a party next weekend, because that's future. That's not something to do with his identity. That's just what he's doing. The coffee doesn't taste right. That is the stative verb in the present simple because it's about the taste of the coffee. It defines the coffee. We're seeing John and Susie next month. That's a future, and that means that we are going to visit them. It's not stative. It's like something that's going to happen. It's an activity. Whereas what do you think about the war is your opinion. So that's much more deep. It's part of who you are, what your opinions are. She has a headache. This is this have for possession. Like she's ill, she has a headache. Whereas it is cold today because the weather is cold. That defines the weather. And they do not have a car, so this is the have for possession. Here we've got some more. So I guess you're finding these pretty easy. We'll just keep going. So I'm not seeing anything. I can't work the telescope. Here we've got the see verb in a present continuous, which means I can't see anything. It means like my eyes are not helping me because the telescope is in the way and I'm not seeing anything. So right now, it doesn't mean that I can't see. And if I move the telescope aside, of course, I'll see everything again. But right now, I'm not seeing anything. So it's temporary. The waiter is tasting the wine, so that's like a one-off. Like the waiter doesn't usually taste the wine. And she's not a doctor, so doctor is who she is. Do you want a sandwich? So want is a modal verb, usually stays in the stative. What's wrong? You're being very quiet today. Are you in a grump? So you're being quiet. That's not your normal state. So your normal state is usually friendly and outgoing and active. But just today, you're being quiet. So I'm not saying, it's just like I'm saying you're not stupid, you're not quiet. But today, you're being stupid or you're being quiet. I think too much about my ex-boyfriend, so that just goes on and on and on. I can't stop thinking about him. They often see a film on Fridays, so this is repeated action. The cake tastes funny. That's core taste of the cake. Are you having a good time at the moment? So that's a temporary action. And the chef always tastes the food before he serves it. So this tasting is different to number 12, where the waiter is tasting the wine, because the waiter only tastes the wine occasionally, whereas the chef tastes the food as part of his job. So that's core behavior. So that's why that has to be in the present simple. So just to finish off, really, this is a slightly more incidental. What's the difference between have got and have? So have got is more British English and have is more American English. But you know, now with movies and things like that, the TV and social media, English between America and Europe has got much closer. And the difference between have and have got, I don't think that it's massively different. You know, it's more just to know that there are two versions of the verb have. You can either say like, do you have 3 children, or have you got 3 children? Do you have a problem, or have you got a problem? But there are sometimes when you can't actually use have got. And like have got, also we say I've got. You wouldn't say I have got her address. You say I've got her address. He's got a beard. They've got a special grant from the institute. So the got is the strong part, and the have is the weak part if you say have got together. So it's not used very much in formal written English. It's a spoken English verb form in British English. Often used, but not always. So, for example, you can say I've got a new car, but you can't say I've got a bath every morning, because it's a really It's a real possession thing. This got is a possession. We use it in present tense mostly. So we don't say, will you have got time to eat before you go? We'll say, will you have time? And I think really that's because we like to have two parts. We like to have our auxiliary and our main verb. And so basically, have got or do you have. So have you got, do you have. We've got two options of that. It's just a bit of variety for us. So will you have time to eat? Or I had a cold and I couldn't decide. You can't say I had got a cold. Well, sometimes you do. Possession, I've got a small house. She's got two sisters. He's got a lovely smile. And it's a nice town. It's got a beautiful cathedral. So here the town has got a beautiful cathedral. So there's kind of an ownership thing there going on. Whereas it's a nice town, there's a beautiful cathedral. We would say that as well, you know. Illness, she's got the measles. I've got a headache. We say that a lot. So if you want to sound like an English language speaker, then you should adopt that. Oh, I've got a headache. Then for time, I've got time, I've got a lot to offer. So this is just another alternative to have. And you have got the v form in there. I've got, you've got, he's got. But actually the got is the loud part. That's the part that expresses the verb. And the have becomes like an auxiliary to the got. So I've got a date, I've got an appointment, I've got two directors coming in, I've got people coming, I've got work to do, she's got the house to clean. So we do use it a lot to talk about what we're going to do. And in negative, he hasn't got a moustache, he hasn't got much money. You don't have a boyfriend, you don't do anything. The point, what we're trying to show you here, is that you don't contract the got form, you contract the have form. Whereas if you use the have, then with the do auxiliary, then you contract the do part and you leave the have strong, because you need one strong part of the verb so people know which verb you're talking about. So he hasn't got a moustache, he doesn't have a boyfriend. Hasn't got, doesn't have. So one contracted, one non-contracted. And either is possible to use. So have you got enough money for a taxi? What have you got? Or do you have enough money for a taxi? What do you have? Do you have her address? And what kind of cake do you have? So it doesn't really matter what. You just need to remember that you have to have an auxiliary when you're making a question. So you can either choose, you can either make have into your auxiliary to got, or you can make do your auxiliary for have. So just remember these important points. Have and have got are used for possession, like Jack's got a beautiful house, or Jack has a beautiful house, either. Only have when you're talking about actions, like I have breakfast at 8 o'clock. You can't say I got breakfast at 8 o'clock. The question form of have is regular present simple, like do you have a fast car? Not have you a fast car, because then you have to say have you got a fast car? You have to use the auxiliary, you know. And then have and have got are only used in present simple. So she had got a copy of that book. We don't really say that. We just use have then. And there's no contracted form of have in the positive. So basically either you say I have a red bike or I've got a red bike, because you need to emphasize one of the verbs. You can't just have, you can't say I've a red bike. Well, it depends how important the verb is, really. So really, that's my presentation now. I was just trying to talk to you a little bit, asking you to think a little bit more about how you use be and have in English, and if you remember to use it according to English language rules and ideas. And if you remember to use there is and there are, And if you remember the difference between something being stative and something being dynamic, so sometimes you may use the continuous form and sometimes you use it in the simple form, and sometimes you use have got and you don't even use have at all. So I hope this has been useful to you. The challenge is really to use the be verb much more and to leave the have verb behind and just to use that for possession and not to over rely on the have verb, but to stand more on the be verb. That's really what I'm asking you to do today. And just to remember to adopt it along with the structure there is and there are when you're describing things. So thanks very much for listening. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.